Great. Well, Eric, thank you so much for joining me today on this call. I've been looking forward to this one for a little bit. Excited to expand the knowledge base of not only my clientele, but people that work with you directly in what you do. Because a lot of times people think KL Discovery, it's e-discovery as a whole. So hopefully in the next 30 minutes or so, we'll help open people's eyes to a full range of what y'all have the capability to do and how you fit into that. So kind of segue that into, you know, tell me just real quick a little bit about your background, how you got, involved with KL Discovery and just a little bit of that.
Sure. Happy to do it. And let me just say thanks for having me, Brian. I mean, the information and what you bring out to your clients is just super value added. And it's a great addition to just the knowledge base in the industry. So let me just start there.
Thank you.
And let me also just say, I mean, we're really, from a KLD perspective, really proud about the partnership that we've developed with Trinity, and the work that you all do, and being able to kind of be a small part of that in that process.
You're more than a small part, but I see where you're going.
No, but so Reader's Digest version on Eric Robinson. I'm an old man who's been around this industry the better part of 25 years. I'm a lawyer by education. Opted not to practice. I've been on the legal operations, e-discovery, legal technology side for my entire career. I've had the somewhat unique pleasure, honor, whatever adjective or adverb as the case may be, that you want to apply, of having served in this industry on multiple sides of the equation. So while I've been with KL Discovery and predecessor organizations to the KL Discovery family for about 16 and a half years, I've also worked in the law firm environment, and I've also worked in corporate legal. I have somewhat of a unique perspective of having been a user, been a buyer, been a provider, an implementer, and having spent a lot of time growing in this industry over the years. Mm-hmm. I live in Richmond, Virginia, so just about 92 miles as the crow flies southwest of Washington, D.C. And as far as roles go, my title, for whatever it's worth, is I'm the Vice President of Global Advisory Services and Strategic Solutions here at KL Discovery, or as I'll refer to it as KLD. And what that means from a practical perspective is that the advisory services team serves two core functions. One is to service subject matter experts across the e-discovery and information governance spectrums, to support our partners and our sales team in guiding clients through these processes. And then on the reactive side is being part and offering consultative services in active engagements, whether that's a data governance, information governance, legal ops consulting, cyber incident response, or core e-discovery. Because at our core, we are an e-discovery company. And everything else we do really has grown and stems from that.
I will say, having, met you, everyone that I've talked to, I've met, at least briefly at Legal Tech, and talking to you over the phone, and even me being a partner that we're going on 3 years with y'all, some of the stuff that you do, I was like, oh, wait, hold on. That's something that we can work with as well and be able to bring to our clients. And one of the things that I've talked with you about, and it, is this: you can see that excitement about some of that stuff that you work on. So, what is it about this role that, man, just makes you smile?
Oh, we were joking before we started.
Or frown sometimes.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's both, right? And they're not mutually exclusive. You and I were joking before we started the recording that we could spend hours talking about about any particular component of this conversation. But for me personally, is I really enjoy. I'm not a sales guy. I get very involved in the sales process, working with clients, serving, and as does my team, serving as subject matter experts. But I really enjoy problem solving, troubleshooting, designing solutions that meet the client where they need to be, not where they're at, but where they
Yeah.
need to be.
We know a lot of clients aren't really where they
Yeah.
need to be currently, so
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite sayings is as a consultant is our clients pay us to tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear.
mm,
Um, so
doesn't always go as well as we'd like it to.
no, you're right. But yeah, that's where having kind of having being long in the tooth in this industry, I can say to a client is this is what you've engaged me for.
Yeah.
Right? I could tell you what you want to hear, but if I do that, then you're not going to get the results that you're expecting.
No, that makes sense. And to use that kind of to go in, for the people watching this, we are going to stay kind of high level, right?
Yeah.
Just because we could go hours on end and helping a client, telling them what they need to hear is important. So we're going to kind of break down a couple of the major functions that you do with KLD, and let's touch on that. So one of the things you mentioned is the data management and information governance. I
Yep.
know that's hard to put in a little 5 minute, 2 minute bubble of, how do you keep it clean? We talked about data hygiene. So how's all that roll up together?
So if we look at this from a core perspective of how do all of these what are all the elements that impact e-discovery, keeping in
Mhm.
mind that KLD is at our core again an e-discovery organization. We're providing e-discovery technology and services. What we have found and where we have grown organically is being able to assist clients in better proactively managing their data, whether that is through designing designing and implementing archiving solutions, preservation archives for just the data that is subject to some sort of legal, regulatory, or business preservation requirement, to looking at kind of legal with respect to the data. I started to jump into the legal ops spectrum, which is another question. But doing the data hygiene thing is understanding what data you have versus what data you actually need or thought that you were keeping. There are still in this day and age many organizations that and I would say most organizations don't have a firm grasp on what data they have and really where it all sits.
Yep.
Which again, if we bring it back to the e-discovery world, is it's not necessarily a big problem given how the cost, quote unquote, storage has dropped over the years. But maintaining data that you have no business or legal purpose or regulatory purpose to maintain creates downstream risk from the e-discovery perspective. Because
Yeah,
if you have it and you have a discovery request that implicates that data that otherwise shouldn't be around or whatever, you now incur the burden of time, cost, and angst in having to preserve, collect, process, and review that data.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about that, and I try to be full transparency. Everybody knows that I'm a huge fan of KL Discovery, and I have a client that probably, hopefully, fourth quarter, and we've talked about this, that the corporation has never deleted anything, and so we're going to be setting up a call, which will probably be months of calls and meetings to get our heads wrapped around that. And so one of the things about learning what y'all did was knowing that I had that ability as a partner to still run point, but have the expertise that we can take to my client and say, how do we get rid of everything you don't need? Because like you said, that downstream cost
Yeah.
is where it's going to bite you.
Right. No, it's true, and it's not even just, again, I know we're focusing on the e-discovery piece, but think about, even for organizations that are in a merger and acquisition stage, right? Whether they're doing the acquiring or being acquired, right? You know, that data, I mean, the data you have is an asset and a liability at the same time.
Good point.
So whether it's for core e-discovery, whether it's for data governance, information governance, this concept of data hygiene is a huge, huge component of, what I would call healthy data management. We haven't even touched on how things like cybersecurity, privacy, um, you know, uh, you know, biometrics, data subject access requests, any of those things applies against the data. I mean, again, we could spend hours,
Yeah.
but everything starts with the data. Your policies apply to your data. Your protocols for managing data apply to your data. Your systems are designed to manage your data. So, or they should be. So understanding what and what you have, where you have it, and why you have it, and the importance of that data to your organization is all really important.
Yeah.
And feeds everything else.
You did touch on a couple things, but I'll still try to break this down at different levels because each one kind of plays a different role. Now, I can see how all of this could fall under one umbrella, but it's still in pieces, right? And so we talked about the governance and everything, but let's talk about the compliance side.
Mhm.
How's that fit into your services and what KL can bring to the table on that?
No, sure. So compliance is, to use your language, is an umbrella. And every organization is going to be structured somewhat differently. But if you really think about it, managing data privacy, managing information security compliance, all of that kind of fun stuff really at some level is part of a compliance program, right? What are your policies and procedures around data? What are what are the policies that your employees or your customers or your clients or your partners are supposed to be adhering to with respect to your data? So compliance actually touches virtually everything. Now we could segment that out. You've got financial compliance, you have privacy compliance, you have security compliance, you have cyber compliance, right? Yeah, there's all different components in there that can come together. It's like talking about information governance. Information governance is an umbrella also that has lots of different components underneath it. Arguably, if you look at the information governance reference model and EDRM, I was fortunate enough to be part of a team that actually redesigned the information governance reference model, or the IGRM, through the EDRM organization, and we spent hours trying to kind of sort out how these things get bucketized, and really I was honored to be part of the group, but some people that were much smarter than I am, really coming to the conclusion that you can't, right? Information, there are a lot of these things are all interconnected. You can put whatever labels you want on them, but they have to touch, and they have to. You can't do something to one without impacting another. And it is really can become a spider web. And again, I don't want to monopolize the time on this one subject, but it is a critical element, and it is a core piece of understanding as you start to think about, what are my compliance requirements compared to what are my data governance and data management requirements, whether they're pushed upon me by some sort of regulatory requirement, HIPAA, for example, or whether it's something that I've imposed to say, this type of information is a very significant business value. So I need to make sure I'm preserving that data for a set period of time. No legal or regulatory requirement to do that, but I think for my business purposes, that's what I need.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm just working through everything. So I want to touch on one more aspect that we have, because then I want so you had mentioned it earlier, is the cybersecurity side of things. So your incident response. So this is going to be a two-part question. So one, tell me about your cyber incident response team, your cybersecurity team, what y'all are available to do, how you do it. And then when working with a client for the first time, or hey, we really need to get the information governance or the compliance, how do you, I know you can't segment it as you were just saying, like put it in a bucket, but like where's the starting point? So talk about cybersecurity, and then how do you prioritize with the client where you're going to start? Do you start with compliance? Do you start with information governance? Or maybe I just say, hey, let's talk cybersecurity first, and then we'll jump to that.
Well, so I mean, at the end of the day, it's one of my favorite terms. I don't know why, but it is. I say it a lot. At the end of the day, it really is a conversation, right?
Okay.
It because again, we can put whatever labels we want on it, but we subscribe to KLD subscribes to a very collaborative, consultative approach across all of our solutions and services. So with that in mind, is it really all of these are conversations. And part of those conversations is ensuring the right people are in the conversations. So if we're doing an information governance and or compliance assessment with a client, one of the very first discussions that we have is a meeting of the strategic stakeholders, and really defining and documenting what are the objectives. Obviously, they may change as information is discovered, right? Never happens.
Yeah.
But then also working with the client to define, at least initially, what are the success criteria for this engagement. Because again, we have to take our clients where we find them, right? And we may walk into a scenario and say, here are all the things that we suggest you do based upon our first kind of 2 hours of conversation. The client may say, completely hear you, but we're really only going to do, out of your 8 items, right now we're only going to tackle 1, 3, and 6.
Okay.
So we have to be able, and in conjunction with our partners, right? Because we don't do, I mean, every component of every engagement may not be directly KLDiscovery, right? We'll never claim to do something or be experts in something that we're not. But we have partners that we can bring in, like Trinity. There are certain scenarios where Trinity may be the best person to bring into an engagement with us, or vice versa. But and willing to sit down and have those conversations. Sometimes they're challenging. Sometimes they can be frustrating for everybody. But being able to get to a consensus on what is the goal that we're now working towards. Here's what you asked for. Here's what you said you want to do. Now, how do we get there?
I think that consultative approach, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Just
yeah, you're good.
KLD as a whole does such a great job of that, right? It is bring the information forward. Here's what we're seeing. And like I said, how do we get there? And, I tell people this all the time, especially like my project managers on the e-discovery side of things. We might get a crazy request from the client that really doesn't make sense to us on an e-discovery side of things, but they're dead set on it being run that way. I tell my project managers, I'm like, at the end of the day, if it's still getting them where they need to go, even though it might not be the most efficient, just hey, they're paying the bills. So, we can only suggest and we can recommend, but at the end of the day, we have to rely on that client making that final decision on where they want to go. So just being there for them and saying, okay, we said this, but you're going to do this. Where do we go next?
And document the heck out of it.
I tell Jason all the time, I'm like, dude, follow up with an email. Just say, hey, per our conversation, here's
Yeah.
just to make sure. Not that that ever comes back to bite us or anything, right? Never. So, um, yeah, I cut you off and I apologize about that. I just had that thought that came up.
We're having a conversation. This is all good. I don't like scripting anyway. I don't do it very well.
Yeah. I shoot from the hip.
But
It gets me in trouble.
yeah, I mean, to your point about, where did this compliance fit in and how does it all kind of come to play is, I mean, again, there's no one answer to that question, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
It's really understanding again, when we look at it holistically, we can put whatever labels or tags on it that we want to. It's really understanding what is the specific client looking to accomplish, and what is the most effective, efficient, and defensible way to get them from where they're at today to where they say they want to be. And then there are decisions that are being made in that intermediary space that impact how or the completeness of the endpoint. Then those are additional conversations. It's like making a change order. Here's what we planned on. Here's the decision that was made. Here's how that impacts the end result.
Yeah, I mean, data is so fluid nowadays that, I wish I could script out with clients, at least from an e-discovery side of things, like how everything would play out, right? Okay, hey, we're going to collect the data. Everything is going to go proper. We're going to load everything. You're going to review, produce, do your depots, trial prep, blah, right? But, oh, our client, forgot that there was a terabyte of storage that pertains specifically to this case that they didn't tell, us about. And you're always moving, right? And you're always changing. So, I mean, KLD having that team that is ready to, you know, take it, take the path that is put before y'all, and we can ask them to walk a straight line. Like, hey, here's where we need to go. But sometimes, it's this, right? And so, just I think again, your team's ability just to advise and be there, whether they accept your finalized proposal, and I don't know if that's the right word, but where you end up, recommendation, and hey, here's what we think. So that actually, and that's not on here, but so do y'all assist in implementing these decisions that are made, let's say at a corporate level?
Yeah, so it's again, I mean, it's what is the nature of the engagement? So we've had
Okay.
engagements. I'll just give you an example. We've had engagements where we've been brought in to assess an organization's current e-discovery readiness, right? How they're doing things, what they're doing. The original proposal has had a option for implementation. The client said, right now we just want to do the assessment. So, we can construct those engagements however the client wants to. We'll always provide the option for the client to go to the next level, to go to the next step, to actually do an implementation. And that can be a lot of different things. Sometimes the changes recommended are are mostly procedural, protocol, that type of thing, maybe even policy. Where when it's a technological recommendation, right, saying we're suggesting that you replace this technology, I'm part of the evaluation. I was involved in one engagement where we were asked to evaluate the current technologies and make recommendations for, enhancements or replacements. And, sometimes that's all the client wants, right? Because they're not ready for the next level, right? So when we craft that with, whether we're doing it or we're working with a partner, here's what you've asked for. If you choose to go to the next phase, here's what it may look like. And here, cost, time are all to be determined based upon what happened in the preceding phase, right? But we can be very involved, and we have been under those circumstances where we have gone into that next phase to do the implementation of whatever, based upon the recommendations, the things that the client has said, okay, this is what we're willing to do now, right? And so we've, for example, we've worked with outside counsel where outside counsel is drafting, or even in-house counsel is drafting policies, right? Because we're not providing legal opinions. But we sure as heck can say, this is your policy. How are you going to implement it, right? How do you create a protocol to meet the policy, to be compliant with your policy?
Yeah.
So we can definitely work with clients. We definitely have worked with clients to do that.
That makes sense. Talk about implementing and outside counsel, and I will jump to because everybody talks about it now, the cybersecurity.
Yep.
Right. We've got the CDK that's affecting, the car dealerships right now, and you hear about it. So tell me a little bit about your cybersecurity incident response, kind of a high level of that group.
Yeah. So it's interesting because we've been doing incident response data mining, and ransomware recovery for years. So we got thrown into the frying pan on incident response data mining back in the 2014 timeframe, and it's public information. We've worked on Home Depot and Target way back when, and we had very quietly been building a practice service offering around that work. Now, for clarity, we're not CrowdStrike, we're not what used to be Mandiant is now Google. We're not doing the front end cyber forensic work. So we're not figuring out who the threat actor was and how they got in.
Okay.
Or necessarily even doing the tracing of where they went. Where we come in is, in the first instance, is the data mining component. So once the potentially compromised data set has been identified, whether it's a mailbox from a business email compromise, or commonly referred to as a BEC, or a server-based event like ransomware or an unauthorized access, then we get that data, whether it's provided to us or our forensics teams or your forensics team goes in and gets the data from the client environment based upon where we've been told to go. We then have a dedicated team that does nothing other than the incident response work.
Oh, wow.
To do the data mining review, which is really a function of looking at the data to figure out what's in the data, who are the impacted entities. So let's say you have a healthcare facility that has an incident. You notice we don't use the B word.
B word's bad. My mom always told me that.
B word's bad. So we then do the analysis on the data to figure out who are the individuals impacted in the data and what are the sensitive data elements like social security numbers, patient IDs, whatever it may be, that has been potentially compromised for each individual.
Okay.
And we use, in 90% of our matters, we're leveraging a purpose-built technology that's designed to do nothing other than data mining, right?
Oh, wow.
And does a really, really great job with this work. because e-discovery platforms, generally speaking, were not really designed for data mining work.
Yeah.
Um,
I think everybody can agree with that.
Yeah, so the Canopy platform really represents a sea change in how this work can be done. And in our experience, it's representing huge opportunities for both time and cost savings. You know, are there cases where using a platform like Nebula or even Relativity may be the more efficient solution? There are kind of edge cases where that may be the case.
Yeah.
But we'll always select the technology that is most appropriate for a given matter. The other area, and then what we do with that is that we provide the entity report. And the value, and what that is that basically gives counsel and the client the information they need to determine who needs to be notified.
Okay.
Now, what we've done in building out the service offering is we've also developed, partnerships within the cyber community. So if a client contacts us directly and says, we've had an incident, we need cyber forensics, we've got partners that we can contact and say, these are cyber forensic experts.
Makes sense.
Similarly, on the notification side, which is the back end of the process, think about the letters that we've all gotten or the emails that we've all gotten saying that your account has been compromised or has potentially been compromised. They never come right out and say it. We have partnerships in place where we can bring those services to the table too, in order to kind of help the client be as efficient as possible and not having to kind of go out and hunt down 5 different providers across the space.
It makes it easy because then that it's a single focus, and just like with having you as our partner, where if one of my client has an incident, right, it's still a seamless, hey, you're not going to have to deal with 50 different people.
Right.
Hey, I'm going to be running point. I'm going to have the team behind it. We'll get all the information, making it streamlined. And so that gives me the ability that I can go to my clients and say, hey, I know you trust us for the forensics and the e-discovery. Hey, here's where else we can make an impact, and do it with a team that has years and years of experience.
Yeah.
And so, on that, I think, one of the things we had talked about, or that, I had, was how the franchisees and partners, fit into that. And, having been with a partner with KLD going on 3 years now, I will take blame that I didn't even know some of those services existed,
Yeah.
right? And so, when these partners are coming on and these franchises are coming on, you know, what would be the best way for them if they're listening to this? What's the best way for them to say, man, I want to be able to play in that sandbox, right? I want to be able to work with the cyber security or the information governance. So, are you the person to reach out to? I mean, just tell me how they would
Yeah.
set up.
So, I mean, from a practical perspective, every one of our partners has a partnership contact. I mean, yours is Keith Burke.
Yeah, terrible
For
guy.
example.
Terrible guy.
Yeah, I know. Trying to get rid of him for years.
I'll hire him. I'll hire him.
So, I mean, that your partnership contact is always a great means of connecting the dots, right? Because they're your relationship manager. That piece aside, is the KLDiscovery website has links both to our advisory services, which is my direct team, as well as into our incident response team. And so there's ways to reach us. I mean, people are always welcome to reach out to me directly. If it's not coming across, I actually enjoy talking about this stuff.
No, I couldn't tell at all.
Yeah, I can help connect those dots as well. I mean, on the cyber incident side, the strategic vision for incident response is being driven by Laney Altamar, who is our vice president in global sales and legal technologies, and by title vice president of cyber incident response. and she's done a great job in building out this, this as a business offering. And then on the data mining side, director of cyber incident response data mining, Nathaniel Swearingen, has done just a unbelievable job in building processes and protocols and a dedicated team around the actual data mining efforts. And then the advisory team layers in to provide kind of, either front end or back end consultative, support.
Yeah, so for anybody listening to this, the relationship between KLD and TLD has been awesome. Has it been sunshine and roses every step of the way? No, but that's always going to happen. There's a learning and there's you know a growing together as we figure out everything. But I will say, so anybody listening to this that is looking for the ability to have an e-discovery platform, Nebula, you also offer relativity. Not only that, but you can't go to Kcura and get these incidents response and the ability to offer these types of things to your clients. But because of this relationship, I can do that and, you know, go to my clients knowing I've got a team behind me, right? Hey, I got Eric behind me, man. He's ready to go. Because we've had that conversation, right? We've got a client that has never deleted data. So I know that's going to be, probably a 6 month or a year once it kicks off process of getting everything lined out. So I do want anybody listening to this to know that, I'm not getting paid for this. They're not giving me any kickbacks, bonuses, just so y'all know, this is just because this relationship that we've developed with Eric and his team and Keith and KLD. And, if anybody saw it, I've had a question and answer with Chris Weiler, the CEO. And it's that type of company environment that I think is really cool, and that you add that value, right? That you have somebody that gets excited about the compliance, and you could just be like, oh god, I got to deal with another one. But you're like, no, let's figure this out. Let's make this work for the client. And that's the type of partner I need, right? I need someone who's going to be excited to help this client, right? And be able to bring that next level of what they need. Because at the end of the day, like you said, hey, we're going to advise and we consult. And, I am a sales guy. I talk a lot. I enjoy interacting with people. I don't mind, I hate getting my teeth kicked in when they're like, oh, don't call me ever again, right? I hate that. But anyway, you know, but I like helping clients figure out stuff and figure out how to win a case or figure out how to protect themselves through these scenarios. And like I said at the beginning, I don't know the numbers, but I would say majority of companies aren't set up. Either they have too much data that they're storing, they don't know where their data is, that they just kind of like, I don't want to say they sweep it under the rug, but they sweep it under the rug, right? Okay, it's not in
Mhm.
front of us, so I'm not going to worry about it. And so having you and your team available to step in when I have a client like my corporation that's like, oh, hey, we've never delete data. We'd really like to do that. And I can now say, you know what? Instead of just, hey, we're going to handle all your e-discovery, now it's like, you know what? Hey, I have a team. Trinity has a team that is going to work on your behalf. And that in of itself sets us apart from so many others, right? We're a small company. We do big work, but we're a small company. We're just in the world of e-discovery, right?
Don't
You know,
undersell yourself, Bryan.
but because of this relationship, we have the ability to now touch every piece of the EDRM.
Well,
So,
yeah,
go
and
ahead.
it just and I think there's a critical element in this that goes beyond kind of the scope of what can be brought to the table, and and kind of the actual, and even beyond the kind of the services and the technology itself. I think one of the things that has really been the foundation of the successful partnership between Trinity and KLD is the synergy of the cultural belief that we're here to build relationships, and to serve our clients.
Yep. Totally
And
agree.
that, you can go and you can develop a solution that is going to cost the client $1 million. But if you know that they really only need the solution, even with growth, that is going to cost them $500,000
Yep.
or $50,000, whatever it is, doing the right thing by your clients is really what establishes integrity in the space. And that's really,
100%.
really critical.
100%.
So, and again, I think the relationship components are the foundational elements, because it's great to have transactional work, and all of our businesses are built to a great extent on transactional work. But what really drives our success is the ability to build relationships where clients have trust and confidence to come back.
Yep.
So everything we do, from a proactive consulting perspective to reactive e-discovery and reactive consulting, is founded in that perception of building and establishing a relationship and just being a good partner in the process. So, and that's kind of my soapbox.
Yeah, no, and it's 100%. And I have always lived that way. Like I will, clients can come at me over a lot of things about mistakes, but integrity is never one that, I will fault on. I've been asked for kickbacks before. I've been asked for, favors and stuff like that. I'm just like, hey, look, use me because I do a phenomenal job, right? Not because I'm going to pay you a percentage of the work you send me. That if I don't get that work, you know what? Hey, then I don't get that work.
Right.
I'm going to work to better my clients. How can I take care of them? And I told Susan this, I told Chris this, I'll tell you this. The only people that offer better customer service than KLD is us. I mean, never.
That's
Sorry,
okay.
you won't ever be our level. I mean, you get pretty close, um, but that's how we live, right? I love taking care of the client. I love making sure the client's taken care of. At the end of the day, getting a text from one of my GC clients that she's at a CLE and happens to talk to another GC at a corporation that I work with as well. She texts me like, "Hey, they are singing your praises. You're doing a bang up job." I mean, that was like I screenshot that. I was like, I'm saving that text forever. That's what we want. That's
Yeah.
that's what I want people to go, man, Brian's freaking amazing. And he brought over Chris, and man, they were the best. So to round that all out, that's why I like y'all's team. I'm so glad that I don't know if Keith reached out to me in early 2020 about acquiring us. No, it was 2019. And I was like, dude, we're just on the up and up. And I'm like, don't want to sell. And then COVID hits and everything. And he came back and he's like, well, what about partnering with us? And I'm like, what do you got? And brought Nebula in. And, you know, as they say, that was the start of this beautiful relationship. So
Right.
I'm glad we have it. Eric, thank you for your time. Even I learned some additional stuff. I mean, even though we've had several conversations, I've learned uh, points where I can talk to a client and, it might be, I say, the client's like, oh, I need this, this, and this. I'm going to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to get Eric and his team so we can get on a call because that's their specialty. I learned a long time ago in sales, if you fudge stuff, you'll end up getting called out. So I learned very early on just to say, hey, you know what? I don't, but I got a team behind me that is freaking set up for this, and we'll hop on a call and make it happen. So, Eric, I know we're a little over on time. Any last words for those, corporations or law firms watching this that you're like, hey, we're amazing?
Well, no, there's no question. I mean, Trinity is an amazing organization, Brian. You've built a great team, within your organization. You're definitely kind of building a brand around what you do and the unique flavor in which Trinity brings to the market. When for KLDiscovery and Nebula are happy to be a part of that and to support that in any way possible. For me personally, the objective is always to educate.
Yep.
Um, and whether it's through thought leadership, whether it's through actually consulting with clients or partners, really being able to kind of, if I can bring value, each day, then that day's been a win for me. And the relationship building is a key component of that. So, want to thank Nebula for your partnership, and Bryan for your personal efforts in that, and for these opportunities to have these conversations. There's a lot of great stuff happening with Nebula, as you know.
Yep.
We've grown. Nebula as a platform has grown 100% 100+% year over year, and just continues. So we're really excited about what the near, mid, and long-term future for Nebula
Yep.
is, and that's going to benefit all of us in the long run.
Correct. Well, Eric, thank you so much. It was great talking to you, and I know we'll be talking again soon. And I will get this video stopped here in just a second. If I can find my mouse.